You're listening to Real Talk Texas with local expert Steve Hakes. Now, here's Steve.
Welcome back to Real Talk Texas. Today in the studio, we've got Jim Striegel of Coldwell Banker and Grapevine, and they service the whole Metroplex. We've been talking about buying and selling properties in North Texas. What makes it? What's the special mix or tricks to the trade? For you listeners out there that stayed tuned from the last segment, I want to reiterate some of the things that Jim does, and he really has taken his business background, applied it to the residential real estate business, and it's a very unique approach. So I'd like to talk again, Jim, about your how you deal with people when they're making that transition from selling their home and buying a new one, some of the special offers you do.
Well, one of the programs I've done since I started the company was your home sold in 39 days guaranteed or I'll buy it. And that's a trade-up program that we've done consistently every year. It's been very successful because a lot of people, number one, don't want the hassle about selling their home. And number two, I'm going to pay appraised value. The bank does the appraisal. I have nothing to do with it. And whatever it appraises for, we guarantee we'll buy it for that price. And then they trade up to one of our listings and move up.
A higher price.
A higher price. You have to go up at least $100,000. So if you're in a $300,000 house, you would go up to $400,000 or whatever higher. The other program we do is a 70% discount on your listing commission. If you're purchasing a home with us, we'll give you a discount up to 70% on the listing commission on your home. That way it's a win-win and a fair program for everybody to where they get a break. And then one of the things I do, which is very important, I get a lot of people that relocate out of Texas and go to other states. One of the things I do is I find them the top agent in that city, in that town, and all agents usually pay us a 25 to 30% referral fee. I give that money to my client as a credit when they purchase. I just had someone in Chicago sell their home in Flower Mound. They went to Chicago, and they got a $4,500 credit because I gave them my commission that I got on the referral fee, which is something a lot of agents don't do. They just take it, and they want the referral, and it goes in their pocket. I think if someone sells a home with you and they're moving out of state, you should do that for them.
Well, and that's because you have a different point of view. And from a lot of agents that I talk to that may not have the business background that you have. And one of the things you said in the very first segment is customer service.
Absolutely.
And how you approach the business, I think, is really great. And probably the reason that you're so successful is that you really think about what's that experience going to be for that buyer or seller of their home. And the fact that you do several transactions, that's the other part. We had a different agent on the show a few weeks back, and I was really, really surprised when he said that the average real estate agent in the United States is involved with 8 transactions a year. That's less than one a month.
Right. And our team, last year we did sold right at 490 homes.
490 homes. That's incredible.
Yes.
So with that volume comes a lot of experience and a lot of ability to give that customer service. And you don't have to make, one of the things I find is that when you've got someone that's the only home they're going to sell that month, they really, really need that commission. And so there's a lot of pressure around the transaction for them from the real estate agent standpoint. And what you said a few minutes ago was, doing the right thing for the customer.
Absolutely. And I think also something's better than nothing. You can't let greed get into the factor. And I find that if people are fair, nobody works for free. We have people that want us to list their home very inexpensive and they'll buy. Some people we will work with, some people we won't. Just because they want you to do certain things, it's got to be a win-win and fair for both sides. I tell people all the time, I had a person say, well, I'll buy with you. Would you sell the house for free? I said, well, no, because we're going to spend $1,500 to $2,000 a month marketing your home worldwide. I mean, we market on 29 websites, and we offer things that other realtors don't do. This is a full-time job for us, and we're open 7 days a week, which makes a big difference. And certain people you can't please. So you just have to move on with life, and it's got to be fair for all parties.
Well, I'm a firm believer in you always get what you pay for as well.
Absolutely.
And so if I'm going to ask you to list my house for free, probably what you'll do is list it on the MLS if you were that type of agent, and then you would do nothing other than that because you can't afford to do it because it would cost you money to do anything else.
And another thing that a lot of people hire agents that have full-time other jobs. If I'm going to sell a real estate and sell a house or buy a house, I want an agent that is full-time in the business, there's so many part-time agents that really don't know what's going on. And literally a week ago, I had a part-time agent send in a contract on one of my listings, and they used a contract that was 7 years old. They didn't realize the difference of Trek, of all the new contracts that are out there.
Oh, and there's been a lot of changes.
Absolutely, tremendous amount. And so I always encourage people to work with people that have been doing this for a while and do it full-time.
Well, and I agree. I mean, and I would tell you in the lending business, it's really evolved, and to the point where we almost, at one point, we would have loan officers that might be part-time or things like that because, it's a commission job too, and so they just have to sell X amount of units or do X amount of loans to make a living. And sometimes it's hard when you first start off to make all the network changes and things like that. So we used to be able to hire loan officers that would start part-time, and then they will evolve into a full-time loan officer if they made it.
Right.
And I think, the real estate community still allows that, but in our business with all Dodd-Frank and things like that, and, we have to pay a minimum wage hourly. So you've got to be full-time really in the lending business, which I think is a good thing for us because we have so many rule changes. And, one of the things I want our listeners to know is that you've heard time and time again about the mortgage meltdown, what's happened in the mortgage business, how it's really, really difficult to get a loan, things like that. And so a lot of people have this fear about getting a mortgage today. What I tell my clients is it's really no different than it was probably in 1998, 1990. The difference is everything's full documentation. So I give you a checklist of what you need to bring to me before we get started with you looking for a home. And I give you a complete checklist. It's usually 2 years tax returns, 2 months bank statements, 30 days worth of pay stubs. If there's been any commissions earned or if you own companies, things like that. We do a lot of doctor loans where they may own interest in different medical practices or hospital facilities and things like that. And I've had tax returns come in that are 6 to 12 inches deep, but we've got the expertise in our office to really read those and understand how to calculate that self-employed income. A lot of people think if you're self-employed, you can't get a loan as easy. You can still get a loan. You just have to deal with somebody that knows what they're talking about. You don't get that with a part-time person. You have to be experienced in the business, and we do that for you. The other thing we do that I want to make sure our listeners remember is that we have the Make Sense Mortgage. Make Sense Mortgage is something that, with all the constrictions and guidelines and things like that are out there today that make it difficult to get a loan or to qualify, and there are a lot of hard and fast rules. Like if you did a short sale on your home in the last 2 years, you probably can't get a loan in the regular market. But if there was a reason surrounding that short sale, we have a couple just moved up from Florida. They had their house on the market for 3 years. One of the spouses was here working for those 3 years. The other one was staying behind trying to sell the house. Finally, they got an offer which was below what they owed. So that's called a short sale. The bank agreed to it. They felt like, hey, I did what the bank, everybody was in agreement, so why am I being penalized? But Fannie Mae and the FHA, they'll look at it and say it wasn't paid as initially agreed, so you're in the penalty box. On FHA, it's 3 years, and on Fannie Mae, it's 7. Well, we looked at it, and the client had a lot of money. They were putting 30% down on the new house. They had another 3-4 months in reserve after closing, and we gave them a loan because it made sense. It was a special situation. It wasn't really their fault. What we look for is things where, hey, something happened. But I said before, bad things happen to good people. Absolutely. So if something's happened to you out there, it's knocked you out of getting a regular loan, we've got one. It's really not a subprime loan. It's more what Gary Graham, our president, calls a tweener loan. It's in between subprime and A paper. It's a very friendly rate. It's a 5-1 ARM, 3-1 ARM, or 7-1 ARM. It's a great product. And if you think that you're a candidate for that, make sure you pick up the phone. Call our office today at 214-643-6021. That's 214-643-6021. We'll be able to help you out, and I'll tell you if it makes sense. And I can do that in a matter of minutes once we actually read the credit report. And that's a novel idea because when I first got into business, you really read the credit report. You actually highlighted, okay, this happened during this month and that they are out of work. So, yeah, they got behind, but it still makes sense. I love that part about that loan.
Absolutely.
So if you've got people, Jim, that you're running into that have that situation. I appreciate the referral.
Absolutely.
All right. So what else do we need to cover as far as, anything that you've got going on as far as the selling homes when you're going in to list a house? I know you've got these trade-up specials and all these make it transition easy. What is the first thing you guys talk to sellers
Normally
about?
what I do is yesterday I went to a house. A gentleman moved to Arizona, and I went in with my gentleman that does the decorating, and it needed some painting, and I recommended to the client, number one, to paint the rooms. They had a concrete stained floor, which had a crack, and it had foundation problems, but it's been repaired and has a lifetime warranty. And I felt that they should go in and put some nice hardwoods down and upgrade the home to where it was more presentable to the buyer, to where they might spend $10,000 but get 20 back. And I think that's the key. It's really taking a home and analyzing the staging process, how it looks. And I tell people all the time, one of the things when you go to a home, go to a model home and see how a new builder model home, how they present a home. And then go back and look at your house and say, what can I do to make my home look more like a model home? Because presentation and drive-up appeal is everything.
I think it's hard for people when you go to list your house because you've lived in it so long and you've had, your grandmother's picture here and maybe all the kids and, everything, like 30 pictures on a small table or something like that. Or, you get used to the way you live and it's hard to be objective.
I would agree with that, but I think that people, to get top dollar today and to get the most for your money, the home, the drive-up appeal, appearance is everything. And if you have to spend a little money to put it in that condition, I thoroughly encourage people to do that. And
I think you probably have to get in a mindset that you've already sold your house, so you disconnect a little bit.
Right.
And maybe approach it as, hey, now I've got a model home that I'm selling. What does it look like?
Right. I think that's the key.
Yeah. So if you're listening out there, you're thinking about selling a house or buying a house, and you want to get a hold of Jim Striegel of Coldwell Banker and Grapevine, they cover the whole Metroplex. Great firm, great accolades, someone that can really walk you through the process. They've got awesome programs to help you make that transition with their trade-up program. Make sure you reach out to us here at 817-925-2546. That's 817-925-2546. That's where to send a text to the show. Just send a text that says, and let us know, buy or sell. We'll put you in touch with Jim.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Tune in next week on Real Talk Texas. We'll have Dr. Carl Howell of ValTrust Capital Partners to give you valuable financial advice here on KLAF AM 570, the Real Talk Texas show.